Welcome back. Today I'm going to be going over this percent SAT question that usually shows up on the second module. And if you know a lot about the SAT, of course you'll know that percentages are a big part of it. So yeah, this is a really important one. But I don't want to waste any more of your time, so let's get right into it. So here we're given a function defined as whatever that is, and we have the value of f of n is p% less than the value of f of n minus 1. And our goal here is to find that p, right? That p value. So first give this problem a try. Okay, assuming you've given it a try, let's start this, right? So the first thing that catches my eye when I look at this problem is that f of x part, right? So we're literally given the exact function, right? There's no other real variables, so I know that I can rely on this function to find some values. Now, it tells us that the value of f of n is p% less than the value of f of n minus 1. Now, you could go this route and plug in n and n minus 1 and calculate the percent that way, but in my opinion, that's really hard because you have variables, you're dealing with n, right? So it's never a good idea to deal with two variables in the same equation, right? So I would eliminate it when you can. But remember, right, earlier I told you that they give us the exact function. So you could actually just plug numbers in, right? So let's say if n was like 1, right? That would imply that f of 1 is p% less than the value of f of 1 minus 1, or f of 0, right? So f of 1 is p% less than f of 0. That's significantly much easier to solve, right? Because you're given the function. So if you plug in f of 1, right, you get 60. If you plug in f of 0, you get 375. So now we have two values, and we have to find out um, that p%, right? How much is 60 percent-wise less than 375? How do we do that? So once again, right, 60 is p% less than 375. And we can make that conclusion because I just plugged in numbers, right, for n. How do you do this? How do you write this as a mathematical statement? I think the best way to think about it is, well, this has to do with percentages, right? So if you have this type of statement, right, with that less than, it's going to be a percent, like, I guess you could think of it as a percent decrease, right? So what I mean by that is you can think of it as a 1 minus p, right? But I'm going to explain it to the way that actually makes much more sense to me, and I think is actually more intuitive. So if you're given 60, right, and that's a specific part of the entire 375, right? If you divide those two together, you get 0.16, right, which is, again, that's 16%. What does that number even represent? Well, 0.16 here, or 16%, represents the ratio of 60 to 375, right? In other words, out of the total 375 amount that we have, how much space does 60 take up, right? And of course, 60 takes up 16% of 375. Now, that's not our answer, right? Because that's just finding how much 60 takes up. We're trying to find out how much 60 uh, is less by, right? What percent it's less by compared to 375. Well, this is actually really easy if you think about it, right? 375 over 375, right? That's 1, or 100%, right? So this is the entire whole, And this is the specific part where 60 takes place, right? That represents the amount 60 takes up out of the total 375. So, well, because you're trying to find how much percent it's less by, well, you just subtract these two, right? You do 100 minus 16, and you get 84%. So again, I think this is a much better way of thinking about the statement, right? Because 60 takes up a specific amount or percent of the entire amount. And of course, the entire amount, right? 375 over 375 is 100%. So you just have to calculate that, the difference between those two, right? And you get 84%. So yeah, that's how you approach this specific problem. Um, Hopefully that made sense, but if you have any questions, leave it down in the comments and I'll see you next time. And of course, yeah, A. A is our answer.